Welcome to VidZet, your home for careful consideration of our common concerns. I'm Dr. Ted Noel. The State of the Union address last evening showed what we are up against in our battle to win back America. Even when President Trump made clear overtures to the left on drug issues, infrastructure rebuilding, and immigration reform, Democrats largely sat on their hands. In large measure, the women on the left even wore black as a protest, and a few didn't even show up. Only a couple of Democrats bucked this trend. Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia stood and applauded these initiatives. In his appearance on Fox and Friends this morning, he made it clear that the virtues of respect and collegiality are not completely dead. But the Democrat leadership is trying to kill them. They are so dedicated to winning that they will not consider working with Republicans even when they share common goals. The character of this polarization clearly lays out the nature of our problem. Yes, we want to win, but it is the purpose of the winning that shows the difference. Democrats give lip service to making things better for some downtrodden group, but their actual purpose is to increase government power. And if the government gets more power, then they will be the anointed ones to exercise that power. What happens to that downtrodden group is completely unimportant. We saw that when they refused to applaud the fact that Black and Hispanic unemployment is now at the lowest level ever recorded. President Trump has just stolen their base. Unfortunately, never-Trumpers are largely similar to the left. They think that they're smarter than the rest of us and should be among the anointed rulers of America. But when we consider the president and the working Americans who support him, there's a completely different goal in view. You see, Americans want America, not some batch of elites to win. Let's put this in plain English. We want three things: safe streets, good schools, and good jobs. You give us these things and watch us thrive. But if that happens, no one needs Washington, D.C. to do anything for them, and every swamp dweller loses his reason to exist. That's why the swamp is so much #resistance. The president is destroying their safe spaces. As we look at this, we are left with a conundrum. As Herman Cain notes, some people simply aren't savable. No matter what you do, they will oppose. Or they've drunk the Kool-Aid and are addicted to false ideas about who Americans are or what we propose. No matter what you do, you won't get through simply because they won't listen. If I have a long conversation with a liberal who will actually listen, we can get involved in detailed discussions of how things work. But how often does that happen? Somewhere between rarely and never? There's got to be a better way. At the risk of being a theologian, and by the way, I am one, may I propose that Jesus actually presents the model that works. First, let's look at his enemies, commonly identified as Pharisees. As we read through the Gospels, we find out that they start out curious and even send Nicodemus to quietly figure out who this charismatic preacher is. They know that Jesus has it right, and Nicodemus admits it. And in case you're wondering, check out the story. It's in John 3. But that doesn't matter to the Pharisees. Jesus looks to upset their cushy deal with the Romans, and they simply can't have that happen. So they get more and more radical in their opposition until they finally kill Jesus. When Jesus argued with them, declaring them to be a brood of vipers, what did he get back? More hatred. Arguments don't work on #resistance. Does that sound just a little bit like the Democrats and Donald Trump? Most of the Pharisees were lost causes, but Jesus was able to attract a large number of other people to his message. Who were they? In the eyes of the Pharisees, they were irredeemable deplorables because they were poor, and God surely would have rewarded the righteous with wealth. What did Jesus do to attract them? He did attractive things. In his day, there were two things. First, he healed the sick and raised the dead. He fed the 5,000. This made their lives better. Those things were done without any personal reward for him. He wanted to show them that God loves them. Then he went further with the message that God loves them even though they're poor. They weren't actually irredeemable deplorables. What has Donald Trump done? He has led Congress to pass a massive tax cut that is making the average man's life better. His regulatory reforms will do the same thing. What does President Trump get out of that? Bupkis. He has truly done this out of love for America, and America is beginning to see it. Now, don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying that Donald Trump is a reincarnation of Jesus Christ. Far from it. But he is using the only method that will allow us to win the day. We have to do things that truly make the lives of our neighbors better. When that happens, they'll see that our interests are in fact good. We aren't the typical politicians or the evil caricatures that the left wants us to believe. We want our neighbors to do better, and we are willing to stand up for principles that let that happen. Let's not waste our time trying to argue with the unsavable. It's way too easy to hate haters. It's too easy to shout, "Lock her up," without thinking about what anger does to us. If we carefully consider that wrongdoers do need to be prosecuted for the good of America, that's okay. But our greatest task is to show the left that we really stand for things that are really good. And we show that by doing good things. The Cajun Navy didn't get paid. They rescued Democrats and Republicans alike. That's what we have to do with policy changes. And then we have to let the good deeds do the talking. We can't just talk about the American dream. We have to show that it's possible. Remember, the American dream is simple. You can invest yourself in a better life, and the government won't steal it from you. What's not to like? I'm Dr. Ted Noel. Please like VidZ on Facebook, support VidZ on Patreon, and follow @VidZ on Twitter. Thanks for watching.